Hello, adventurers, and welcome to the Micflayers podcast, coming to you from one of many magically corrupted environments. I'm your host, Conor Martin, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Mr. Martin O'Dwyer.
How's it going, Connor?
Not too bad, buddy. How are you today?
I'm good. We're tackling magical Greenpeace today, I think, are we?
More or less, yeah. How are you? Any news? Any goings on in your D&D games at the moment?
Actually, yeah. Do you remember a few weeks ago when we were talking about magic items? And I was like, there's a thing I can't talk about right now because I almost spoiled something. I could actually talk about it now. My players figured it out. There's two vestiges at play in my party currently. One on my blood hunter, Thurston. He's got a long sword called the Eclipse Edge that's tied to my moon god. And then I've also got my rogue Arandir recently picked up. It's a trident that can also turn into a short sword as a bonus action. It's called Tidebinder.
Ooh, very cool. I like that kind of gives me the idea of like, oh, it's a trident, so it's very like, nautical, but also it can be like a cutlass, so it's also still very nautical.
The short sword is a cutlass, yes.
Yeah, that's cool. That's very cool.
It was inspired. Showing that Bruce Lee quote, "Be water" is like be formed as shapeless. I was like, that like I was trying to think of just like a ribbon ability that would be cool for this thing to have, and I was like, oh, form the shapeless like water, because it's a trident tied to the god of the seas.
That's a very cool concept, like a morphing weapon that, because it's aquatic in nature, just like bursts into water in your hands and then reforms in a different shape.
That's literally how I narrated the term as well. Yeah, and it's a mithril. I made it special because tridents are generally a strength weapon. So it's a mithril and like chitin forged trident.
Yeah, that's cool.
So it's like it's a finesse weapon.
That's something that I really really love and I love putting into games is the composition of weapons. Like, I like when something is made from, like you said, mithril or chitin, or if it's made from dragon bone or something. Like I gave, we talked about it before. I gave Dan, or should I say, our warlock, Arkham, a bracer of the Aquamancer is what I call it, and it's made of whale bone because I was playing Dishonored at the time, but it has like sapphire etchings and runes in it and stuff like that. But I love describing the composition of magic items, the type of metal that they are made of, or the type of what was harvested to make these things.
I based Eclipse Edge on Dawn from Game of Thrones, the Sword of the Danes. It's got
the sword wielded by the Star of the Morning.
The Sword of Morning.
It's a Sword of the Morning. Sorry, yeah.
But it's made from like star metal, which in Game of Thrones is like iron harvested from a meteorite. So Eclipse Edge is forged from the iron from meteor that fell during a lunar eclipse.
It's funny you should bring that up, actually, because literally yesterday
there was a lunar eclipse.
Oh, I didn't know about that at all. No, I was gonna say that I was literally, there's a guy I watch about on YouTube who does like explanations of very very detailed explanations of Westeros and that whole Game of Thrones world. And one of the ones he brought up he was talking about the various Kingsguards that have appeared in the main narrated story of the world. But he brought up Sir Arthur Dayne. And then talked about how, whereas many houses in Westeros have Valyrian steel swords that they pass down to the generations, the what's it called? Is it called Dawn? Yeah.
Yeah, Dawn. Yeah.
Dawn is actually not made from Valyrian steel. It's made from meteoric iron, and has special properties as a result that puts it apart from other Valyrian swords. And on top of that, then, it's not simply passed down from generation to generation. You have to be proven worthy of wielding such a fantastic weapon. Otherwise, it'll just be held in storage until your son or your son's son comes along and they have the skill to wield such a sword. And as we all know, Sir Arthur Dayne was one of the only people in Westeros that could wield two long swords in combat. And therefore was
I hated that. I hated that so much. I hated that. Yeah. That was one of the things I hated the most. In that series was Arthur Dayne, legendary wielder of the great sword fucking Dawn, that's got like this sick like milk bottle glass blade that like you can see through when you hold it up to the light. I think you could see through. It was like Yeah, it was like milk glass.
I think that's how it's described. Yeah, that wasn't in the show. I think he just
and they just gave him 2 random long swords and made him like a shitty Darth Maul. Like, what the fuck? Yeah, I can say fuck. It's 5 minutes in. It's grand.
we are 5 minutes in. Clear.
Sorry, that actually upset me so much.
I did bleep one of those. I did actually bleep one of those an episode or two back. We were like a minute 5 or something like that in. And I remembered you saying it and being worried that it was too early. So when I was editing it, I specifically waited till a couple minutes in, and I found it, and I just mute you very quickly for that one bit.
well done. I apologize for the extra work.
No, it's good. Don't worry about it.
No, that was just my little rant on Game of Thrones, because I absolutely, one of my favorite things in all like fantasy literature is when people like describe like their like gear, like, because it's just like the idea of like what went into forging it and how it's made and like the properties of the things are made. I always just like get my brain racing.
No, yeah, I think it's so evocative though. That's the fun part. I rarely hand out a magic item anymore without going into excruciating detail about what it looks like. I gave Aerith, our blood hunter, a cloak of the bat not long ago. And I described it as having that Vanta black appearance to it, which just absorbs all light. And I love doing that though, because again, even with experienced players, I could very easily. We talked about this a few weeks ago with magic items. I could come up to you and I could go, and I'm gonna say it again. Here's a flame tongue dagger.
You're never gonna let that go, are you?
Do you know what? I think the flame tongue dagger is actually a great weapon.
Oh, it's really good. At level 5, it's fucking amazing.
Yeah, even extra 2d6 on all your attacks, even at level 15, is great.
Mm-hmm.
But the only reason I say it is because
lessons learned.
The only reason I say it is just because it's my go-to magic item when I want to talk about magic item. But again, describing that in a more evocative way than simply saying it's a fiery sword is really cool, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love talking about the material compositions of these things, and also I think it can inform world building and culture. Like for example, when it comes to earth elves in my world, which are my dark elves essentially, they typically make a lot of their magic items and stuff out of adamantine. Mm-hmm. And then when you look at things like wood elves, a lot of their stuff is actually just made of like really like high quality wood, but they have these bows that they can carry around that looks like an acorn on a necklace, but then you can just like hold it in your hand, it will immediately grow into a full-size longbow. And they have armor that again looks like a necklace or a single bracer, and when they activate it, a bark grows all over their body and forms a full set of bark armor for them.
Very Druid Iron Man. I like it a lot.
Yeah. I was thinking more like, what's that guy? Is it Guyver? Do you ever watch Guyver?
Guyver? No.
It was an anime. I think it was anime. I don't think it's Western. It looks like an anime. I'm fairly certain it's not Western. For all the weebs out there before they get angry at me. Yeah, it's basically like a young fella and he finds like this. It's a bioorganic suit. And it like grow. If I showed you a picture, look up a picture of Guyver. I think it's just Guyv or Gyver. I think it is. He's got like a blue suit and a big kind of swoop horn coming off his head. And it's just kind of an action anime.
Oh, Guyver the bio boosted armor. This looks familiar, but I don't know if I ever watched it.
It's old. It's fairly old at this point. I've only seen bits, and the main reason I know it is because when I was in first year in art class, up on the walls, one of the 5th years or 6th years who was doing like a project or something like that, did a really, really good painting of it, and it was up on the wall. I just thought, like, as a 12-year-old, I was like, that looks really cool. And I remember a guy in class named Sean I had no idea what it was. I had no idea how to check what it was. And one day, this guy in class told me, "Oh, that's a guy named Guyver." Actually, fun story. He told me that guy's named Guyver. It's in a show you can watch. And I was like, "Oh, that sounds really cool." And he goes, "Yeah, you can look it up on this channel on this no, not this channel. You can look it up on this website called YouTube." And I was like, "What?" And this is how I discovered YouTube. No joke.
That's great.
I had to have him write it down on a piece of paper for me when I was 12. And he went, "Yeah, it's called YouTube. It's basically you can just look up videos of stuff online." And I was like, "Oh, that sounds interesting." And that was the very first time I ever heard of YouTube.
Yeah, I think my first time I started using YouTube a lot was when I started watching Bleach. because they used to have all of the episodes were up on YouTube, so you just watch.
Because there's no copyright stuff on YouTube at the time. Yeah.
Well, I think we're still up there actually. Oh,
there's I remember like when I first for me for a long time YouTube was where you could find music videos and things of cats and things of just fails, like people hurting themselves, or that guy who cut down a tree and it fell on his house. So like that was like YouTube for me for a long time, and then I discovered like Philip DeFranco and a guy named Kevin, who is an Irish guy who lives in Cork, and he has a gaming channel. And he was playing Minecraft at the time, and that is how I discovered the concept that YouTube can be a serialized show that is recurring weekly or every few days or something like that, you know?
Yeah, I think my first...
Prior to that, the idea of doing this recurring or narrative thing, or even like just a recurring show, just was lost on me. And I just thought, oh, that's a funny cat. Oh, that guy fell over. Oh.
And now look where we are.
25
episodes in.
We're episode 25. That's our what do you call that?
Almost half a year.
Yeah.
Goddamn.
That's it is almost half a year. Jesus.
That's gone fast, man. Yeah, actually.
It is technically we're 26 weeks in because we did skip 1 week.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. Goddamn Nothics.
Yes, that was it. It's definitely not something. It was actually me that did something, and I don't remember why I couldn't record. But
no, don't dispel the mystery. You're gonna rob us of all
our viewers think Nothics really exist, and now you're spoiling it for them, Connor.
You're gonna
Sorry
rob
for
us
ruining
of all
the magic, folks.
You're gonna rob us of all our mystique, goddammit.
Because we're just dripping in mystique.
What? Can you not see this mystique with my lovely wall of posters and blue tag?
What people don't realize is that's actually a green screen behind you, and you actively put that in.
Yeah. I deliberately put in a messy bedroom instead of the castle that I actually live in.
Yeah. You're trying to downplay it. You want to be relatable to the common people, like you know.
Yeah, you know. Want to keep it real.
Yeah. So when people, you want to be relatable to those people, like
you need a good environment for doing certain things.
Yeah. So Martin, I figured today it'd be interesting if we talk about adventuring environments, and how we can use not just we'll say not so much the town or the country, maybe a little bit as well, but what I mean more so is like the environment in terms of the climate, the atmosphere, the temperature, which is climate. Are there magical effects? Is there wildlife? You know, is there naturally occurring phenomena? Geographic things like magma, and like other things, geysers, all that kind of stuff, and how they can kind of inform an adventuring environment, and how they can be almost like an additional character or an additional factor that you can use to kind of extrapolate on the world and add a different dimension to it. So some of the simple stuff you can do, and I think I've done some of it recently, and it always adds a nice layer to things, is just doing things like messing with temperature. You know, is it winter in your world currently? Is it cold enough outside that people will need to have warmer clothes, or that you need to light a campfire at night, or you will take a level of exhaustion or something like that, you know? Recently I had you guys going through the frozen countryside of Redalia. It's in the midst of winter. I was rolling on the weather tables, which are always fun. I never really used them before. I just kind of pick what I feel the weather should be. But I started rolling on the wind and precipitation tables, and actually made for some interesting kind of combinations of things, because there were certain fights you guys were in where, because the winds were high, ranged attacks were at disadvantage, and because it was so cold, they had you making constitution checks to not have a level of exhaustion from just the utter bitter cold outside. Do you utilize any of those in your world with your players?
For talking about like the more mundane stuff, I haven't used cold a lot because they haven't actually gone to the colder places in my world. But I have actually, they were going through an area where I actually strung a lot of like magical terrain and other kind of hazards together from dashes, and one area was influenced by the plane of fire, so naturally the temperature's quite high. So I had everyone but my blood hunter, who has fire resistant armor, make con checks to avoid exhaustion from the heat. And I really like that about like armors or magic items that grant resistance like that, just as a little kind of, because it's not explicitly said in the thing, but like my logic for it, because we were talking about this in our D&D group chat. One of our mates brought it up as a question, and it was just like, look, if it can help you half damage from a dragon's breath, then like heat is not going to be an issue.
Absolutely, yeah. No, that is a thing. It is a rule in the game that you can wear. If you have frost resistant stuff, you're more. And it's actually, if you're even going to look at it, the armor of cold resistance that's illustrated in the Dungeon Master's Guide is actually
the Frostbrand dagger also makes you immune to the effects of cold weather, I believe.
I believe so. Actually, yeah, it does. But I was saying the armor of frost resistance, it's just like leather armor of frost resistance, but if you look at it, it's got like a furry collar, and you can see it's like padded and stuff like that, and it's very obviously warm clothes as well. It's designed not just in the fact that it's enchanted, but in visual to be warm clothes.
It sort of reminds me of like Inuit battle armor, the way it looks really cool. I love it, you know, just because it's got all like the big like reinforced like leather plates that normal armor does, and then it's got like all like the fur cuffs and the big furry hood and stuff. It just looks like something you'd see like Ragnar Lothbrok go like raiding in the Northern Seas wearing. I love it.
I was literally just thinking,
although Vikings always used like ringmail was their go-to,
yeah. But you said Inuit stuff there, and I kind of went to the same place, but in a slightly different tangent, because I was thinking, oh, it's kind of like the water tribes in Avatar.
Yeah.
But they're Inuit based. Their culture is based on Inuit culture. So yeah, it's really. But I mean, like, I kind of like that. I like that there's It's always fun when players get to overcome, or they have a unique ability. Like, they don't come up very often. But we'll say if you're in a desert and it's scorching in the desert, and everyone's like, you need X amount of water a day because you're sweating so much, and then also you might get a heat exhaustion or sunstroke or something like that, and you're making con checks, and then the tiefling is just strutting along with no bother because he's got fire resistance and it's not a problem. Stuff like that. Oh god. Sorry, I'm just joking. But stuff like that's really fun for players to be able to bring that up, because again, it doesn't come up very often, but when it does come up, to be able to go, oh, I have fire resistance, so I don't need to make this save, do I? And the DM's like, no, you don't. And you're like, yeah, go me for picking that race 6 months ago.
Or like a recent example from our game, we had to go through a long underwater cavern, and Wabu can hold his breath for an hour, so he was all fine.
Yeah, exactly. That's another one. Like, underwater is a good one as well. Yeah, he was playing a turtle, so he can hold his breath for a solid hour. I brought this up before, and it's one of my favorite things. It's one of my favorite abilities of any race, and it's such a dumb one, but I love it, is that Air Ganassi never have to breathe. They can just stop breathing, and they never have to breathe again if they don't want to. And I love that about them, just because again, super unique situations. Like if you're, again, underwater cavern, or if you're in a room that's suddenly filling up with poison and gas, you could just turn to the DM and go, I stop breathing, and then you're grand, you know. So stuff like that can be really, really fun when you're in when it pays off in such a way like that, you know, and it's rewarding to the players. You guys had one that came up when it was actually fairly late in the campaign. You guys would have been about 15th level in our first campaign, when I had you going to a ruined dragonborn, blue dragonborn settlement in the desert that was destroyed. Mm-hmm. You made your way into an underground cavern, or like into a tunnel, and there was a trap that was triggered that was a sleep. It's essentially a high level sleep spell. But the thing was, and I kind of forgot this in the moment, I had 3 elves in the party who are all, by their racial feats, racial abilities, they are immune to magical sleep. So I just had a dragonborn and a dwarf go dum dum and just keel over, and then like 3 elves were just standing there like, what the hell is this all about? And again, that didn't come up not once in the entire campaign up to that point, and then it came up there, and it's rewarding to have an ability that gives you an advantage in a certain environment, you know.
Yeah, it's especially if it's one like the elf magical sleep one really doesn't come up that often, because usually if you're a DM and you see that they don't have that, the creature has sleep as a spell, mm-hmm. like narratively anyway, I go, okay, you know this spell, so you know who this spell won't work on.
Yeah.
So like,
I
don't get
agree.
to use that a whole bunch, so the players don't get to exercise that immunity a whole bunch. So when it does come up like that trap thing, I remember that because I was actually going to bring it up a second ago that when you were talking about like things that races can do is the elf resistance to magical sleep, and like I remember that happening. I was just like, oh, sleep, cool, awesome, yeah. Or like when we were fighting, I think there was another thing we were fighting, and like I had gotten to the level in Paladin where you become immune to disease. And you were like, okay, you take X amount of damage from this thing as this disease inflicts you. I said, did you say disease? Oh, I'm immune to disease.
Same with monks as well. Monks get a lot of that kind of stuff too.
They get poison and disease, which is crazy.
Yeah. But that, like, I really enjoy that. I really enjoy it. Even if it only shows up once or twice in the campaign, the fact you get that pays off, and I absolutely love it. There was one I was thinking of there. Oh, when we were in our very, very first D&D game ever, the DM included a magic item which he called like the Book of Ultimate Boredom or something like that. And if you took an action to try and read the book, it would instantly put you to sleep. And I remember I was very pleased with myself because I was still very new to the game. And someone tried to read it and fell asleep immediately. And then I turned to the DM and I was playing a half elf and I was like, can I read it? He's like, you sure can. I'm like, okay, I open the book and I read it. He's like, you fall asleep. And I was like, no, I don't, because I've got Elven Ancestry. And he's like, all right, it's a really dull book though. And I'm like, it is a really dull book, that's fine.
Yeah, but you got to use it though, that's all that mattered.
I just, and again, it wasn't even like we needed to read the book. It was a random magic item that you kind of put in as a joke, essentially. No one had to read it. Like, it would have been cool to use that later on and be like, oh, you've captured us, bad guy. Here's a book with all of our evil plans in it. Do whatever you need to. And then he reads the book in the bag and just falls asleep or something. That would be really funny. But we never really got to anything like that. But it was, it's just fun to have abilities like that. One environment I don't think I've really gotten a huge amount. No, I've had bits and pieces here and there. Oh no, I got to do it once actually. Never mind. I'm talking to myself mostly here. Sorry.
It's great.
It's underwater environments. Underwater can be super, super fun, and in something like D&D, obviously, there are some like Triton and Water Genasi or Chinasi, or Genasi, or whatever you want to call it. No one knows how to pronounce it.
It's Genasi, and you can change my mind by writing to me at an address that doesn't exist because I'm not going to change my mind.
So cue the
meme.
It's pronounced Genasi. Martin sitting at a table with his arms crossed.
Change my mind.
But yeah, if you play like those two, and then like the Lococath, what's the fish?
Oh, Locata.
Locata, yeah, those are cool. I would have really loved to play one of those. But yeah, like play any one of those and you're fine. But most of the races don't have swim speeds, and even weirdly, I don't get why, but maybe it's just a balance issue. Turtles do not have a swim speed.
Yeah, maybe. No, because turtles are pretty fast in the water.
Yeah. Well, like they're called. Yeah, I mean they're called.
They're tortoises, not turtles. That's why.
Is that why though? I mean, like, because they're called turtle. Is that just a merger of the two words?
I think so.
And then,
but I think they're more tortoise based though.
Yeah, maybe, because I think if you read up on them in the what's it called, the Turtle package is the expansion thing you get on D&D Beyond for them, and if you read up on them, they're born, I believe, on beaches like turtles do, where they go up onto the sand and bury the eggs, and then
okay. I guess they must be turtles, so which would make maybe they're just not sea turtles because no fuck. I'm no turtle expert, right?
It's interesting that like but I mean like that makes for good challenges. I remember in campaign 1 of Critical Role there was a point where they had to go under. It was near enough the end of the campaign. I think they had to go underwater and fight not a leviathan.
A kraken.
Kraken, thank you. And they had to go through a portal underwater, and they were like testing what their limitations are because they hadn't done that before. And I know that piercing weapons work correctly, but weapons that are slashing and bludgeoning, you have disadvantage on attack rolls, which makes sense because like you can stab a spear like spearfishing in a water very, very comfortably, very easily. But if you're trying to swing your whole arm, there's going to be a lot of resistance there in the water. Yeah. And I like that though, because that's again, it's another challenge you can introduce to players to try and just try to, I guess, try to catch them out not catch them out, but to just add an extra layer that they have to think about it and challenge them to have to try and overcome a new issue, you know?
Yeah, it's just a small little additional challenge. That coincidentally, I think I overlooked in the good like month and a half I spent playing underwater sessions with my characters, but that was much earlier in my dev career, so I'm willing to forgive myself that oversight.
Whenever we talk about this, and we brought up on the podcast.
Oh no, all my guys use piercing damage. It's fine. Never mind.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
But that's the thing as well. I think ranged weapons still work, but only out to their
minimum range. I think isn't it?
Yeah, like so if they have like a 60, 120 or something like that, they'll only work out to their 60, and after that they'll just drift off and begin sinking. But I like that though. I mean, again, it challenges, especially if you have players who like maybe typically use like a longsword. They now have to like prepare before they go into this underwater thing. Do they have an extra weapon? Can they buy an extra weapon when they're going down here? That's like a spear or something like that, you know?
Point of order question. Longsword, right? Not only a slashing weapon. You can stab very effectively with a longsword. Can you rule that a longsword does piercing damage if they specifically say I stab with the longsword?
I've wondered about this before, because I thought like the reason it comes into my head is like if you're in a situation where someone's tied up with ropes, or there's something hanging from the ceiling, like a chandelier, for example. If we're going to get all Pat Rothfuss about it, there's a chandelier hanging from the ceiling, and you want to run over to where it's tied up at the side of the room and cut the rope so it falls on your enemy. But all you have is a short sword, which does piercing damage. You know, like realistically, a short sword is still a sword.
Yeah,
it can slice and cut as well.
You can slash. It's a sword. You can slash or pierce.
Yeah.
As a DM, anyway, if someone said, "Look, I specifically stab with my longsword," I'd allow them around it.
Yeah. I wonder. I don't think there's many times when it would come up. Really, there's only a handful of monsters that require you to
specifically fight them underwater.
No, sorry. What I was going to say is that most monsters either have no resistances, or they have resistance to like non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing, but they're almost always grouped. I know skeletons have resistance to piercing.
They do. They have vulnerability to bludgeoning, though.
They do, yeah, exactly, yeah. But they're like one of the few creatures that have a difference in that. Other than that, the three are usually grouped. So I mean, I suppose if I was to rule it, I'd probably say that you can very comfortably interchange the three of those however you want. If you have a warhammer that on one side is a blunt edge and on the other side is a spike, which a lot of them often did, because that was how you pierce the armor.
Yeah.
I would have no problem with someone with a warhammer going, oh yeah, it has this other spike on the back and I do piercing damage. They're like, oh yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah, I think the longsword one though, or the longsword shortsword one in particular, I would just find it very hard to have like a clear logic as to why you couldn't do that. You know?
Oh yeah.
So that's why I would just really, yeah, of course you can. This isn't working. I'm a trained fighter. I guess I'll look for another way. And this works. Cool, and it's just as effective. Grand.
Unless it's one of those Urukai blades, in which case it's just flat on the top.
Oh Jesus. Yeah.
But yeah, I guess if I had to make a case for why you couldn't do it, I would say, well, because this is the way the weapons are and they're balanced that way for a reason, blah, blah, blah. But realistically, like I said, I actually do not think it would impact the game that much, if at all. So
yeah, particularly because those three damage types are generally grouped together and grouped under resistance. So, yeah. But yeah, no, underwater is fun. It provides, like, one thing that, like, not only me but my players also kind of fairly consistently began to forget was that, like, gravity doesn't work quite the same when you're underwater.
Agreed.
Yeah, like they had to escape somewhere after a mission, and I was like, when I was designing the mission, I was like, okay, they'll probably like have to like stealth around or like cause a distraction or like do or like pull off some ridiculous magical stunt, and then they went, okay, we're just gonna open up the big windows that you said were in this room and swim out, close the windows, and swim down to the ground. I was like, yeah, and you can totally do that because there's water everywhere.
I think you had that issue when they were trying to get into a location as well. You were like, so the front door is guarded. They're like, can we swim up to the windows? And you were like, I guess you can. Which begs the question: why is the front door guarded when there's a bunch of windows on the outside? Like, this is where my mind goes. Would buildings still look like buildings if they were underwater when you can just approach them from any direction?
I would imagine the severe amounts of pressure at the bottom of the seafloor would maybe negate the possibility of windows.
So does that mean that?
But I didn't think of that at the time because I was writing a fantasy world, and every underwater city is just like glass and seashells.
Exactly, yeah. It's all just made of seashells and sand. It's basically a big sandcastle.
It's super hardened magical glass.
There you go. Yeah,
There we go.
twice tough glass from Name of the Wind.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. That's cool.
Twice tough glass. Yeah, I always love talking about that. Again, if we're going back to the talking about the composition of magical items, the Name of the Wind books do a good job of talking about the materials that go into artificing and making magical items, which was great.
Yeah, if you're playing an artificer, absolutely, I would even just read the sections from Name of the Wind where he is artificing.
Mm-hmm. There's when it comes to the underwater stuff, swim speed can be affected and stuff like that as well.
Swim speed,
and depending how deep you are as well, darkness could be an issue. The further underwater you get, the darker it gets.
Totally.
I remember I put you guys on. You guys had to you were in the Underdark. You had to get from the Underdark back to the surface. But in order to do that, the Marid genie that you ran into was like, sure thing. Just swim through this portal to the elemental plane of water, then swim for like 8 hours, then just go through this other portal, and you'll arrive back in the material plane. But you were already like he sent you the most roundabout way there.
Easy done. Like, come on, easy done.
Yeah. And you guys had to fight some, what was he called? A Mero?
Yeah.
And a couple of sharks, I think, as well. Yeah.
Mero are fun. I like Mero are the ones that have they have a harpoon and they can throw it at you, and if they hit it, yeah, I like that a lot. It's very very Mortal Kombat, very Scorpion.
Very Mortal Kombat, yeah. I think they're really that was one of the few underwater things that kind of had you do.
Yeah.
But that's fun. I mean, like I like again, anything that will put a restriction or a limitation or a challenge of some kind that the players have to then try to overcome is great, and that's why the environment can become almost a character or a challenge unto itself. Is to be like, well, we're in this place where we need to have water breathing somehow, so we need someone who can cast that, or we're underground or underwater and it's dark, so I can't use my shield because I'm too busy holding a torch while I have my sword in my other hand, and all these things present different challenges to the players and stuff.
Yeah, I like it a lot. There was I was only thinking now because it happened recently. We were playing Vermintide recently, and there was a mission where you had to bring a cart through a darkened mine. And I remember at one point the cart got quite far away from us, and I was just looking at where all of us were just like lost in this dark cave system, and I was like, if this was D&D, there would be like a 19-legged aberration hanging from the ceiling, just being like, oh, it's my lucky day.
Just like a little cartoon character, he just pulls out a bib and he just ties it around his neck. He's like, this is gonna be good. Takes out a knife and a fork and he's like, let's go.
He's got like 18 pairs of knives and forks.
Yeah, exactly. That was actually, I wish, actually someone brought it up recently on Twitter about no one plays darkness properly in D&D.
Yeah, because it's you're supposed to only see in like shades of grey, isn't it, with dark vision?
Well, yes, but also like no one ever, like people just assume. And like, to be fair, I'm guilty of this myself. If you have dark vision, you can see. Therefore, you can, you're not blind when you're in total darkness. Correct. But if you're in total darkness, it's still dim light, which should be disadvantage on all perception checks for sight-based things. And I always forget to do that. And I've had 2 campaigns now where I have 2 part warlock players who took the devil's sight, so you have 120 feet of perfect dark vision, including magical darkness.
Yeah. To be fair, I took that on Eru because I got ruined by was it a Meredith? Yeah, that Meredith who just just cast a globe of darkness on the 2 of us, and she could see through it, and she just like shanked me like 10 times, and it was like never again. Oh
yes, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, there was a whole thing about it because again, really small detail, you might miss it. Merediths have true sight. Also, I did the same thing when you got your powers again, I believe, because you were to fight a former party member companion in order to be worthy of your Fey patron. And in doing that, what that guy did to try and get the upper hand, you were a paladin, he was a rogue warlock. And then he was like, right, I'm just going to cast darkness on myself and hide inside this bubble of darkness, and I can shoot out at you, no problem, but you can't hit me or whatever. That was a pretty clutch one-on-one fight.
That was a nail biter. That's one of my favorite moments in any D&D game I've played. Is just the end of that fight. That was so fun.
It was like, honestly, I was trying as best I could in the character to win that fight, and honestly, the dice were with you, but only just because I think you ended that fight with like a handful of hit points.
Yeah,
if you hadn't landed the last attack, he definitely would have gotten his next one, and you would have been done.
Yeah, I had to hit with that, and that's why I was like, I hit all of the smite. Yes, all of it.
Yeah. But yeah, darkness is another great one as well, because that, again, there's people also complain an awful lot that there's a lot of races or too many races in D&D that get dark vision.
I'm like,
but that's
logically
why
there should be more. Like logically,
there's
like I who doesn't have dark vision? It doesn't make any. Feckin' Tabaxi, they don't have dark vision, and that makes zero sense to me. We literally name things that light up on the road at night when they react to light. Cat's eyes.
Well, maybe again, I think that kind of falls in line though with one. By the time Tabaxi came into fifth edition, we were already pretty far enough in that people were complaining about too many people having dark vision.
I know,
and also,
yeah, okay, but like I get it, like Tatsy, like fucking they have that like that layer, that extra thing in the back of their eye that reflects the light, like, so I'm just like, wait, anything to like to kind of like, I guess.
Oh, they have dark vision.
They do.
I was looking at them here. I just want to look them up. To actually have dark vision, yeah.
Who might? No, halflings don't have dark vision. That's it.
Halflings do not. No.
Yeah.
Halflings, humans, Goliaths, orcs. I don't believe have it. No, orcs have dark vision.
Dragonborn don't.
Dragonborn do not. God, Yuan Ti do for some reason, but I don't totally understand that.
I get that because snakes see in thermal vision.
Yeah, so they should have thermal vision.
But have you ever read the thing? Do you know the way Tiefling
Hobgoblins have it.
Tiefling
Kenku do not.
That makes sense. Tiefling dark vision is done in shades of red because they see the heat.
That's not Tief. Is that Tief? I thought that was Fire Ganassi.
That might be Fire Ganassi actually, but snakes would be a similar thing. I would rationale because they that's how they attract a lot of their prey is through. Like,
I suppose you also don't need to be creating a whole other form of sight that you need to introduce as a mechanic in the game as well. Gnomes have it, half elves have it, half orcs have it, tieflings. Yeah, like Leonin have it.
Leonin have it and Tabaxi don't. That's a funny
one. But Tabaxi do. We're doing it.
Sorry,
Tabaxi do have it.
Sorry, that's just stuck in my head for some reason that they don't. And I DM for a Tabaxi.
Do you know what I think you're thinking of? The actual stat block for
a cat
in D&D does not have dark vision. Yeah,
that's exactly is what I'm thinking of. Jesus.
Satyrs do not have it.
I'd imagine Minotaurs do not,
but that makes sense.
Because they're strong enough already, okay?
Well, I mean, like, Aarakocra aren't even that strong. They just happen to have 60 feet of flight at level 1.
Take Ranger. You fly 60 feet above someone. You have permanent advantage from shooting from an elevated position.
Take any spellcaster Aarakocra and just fly above the battlefield and throw like fireballs and flame whatever is down on people. Like, not all Ganassi have it actually. Is it only Fire Ganassi? I want to say it's only Fire Ganassi because I believe, or maybe Earth have it as well. Yeah, Earth do. No, it's only Fire Ganassi have it.
I guess, yeah, thermal vision, I guess, is probably the narrative for them then.
That's I think how it's described for them. Goliath do not have it. Bugbears have it. Aasimar have it. Furbolgs do not have it. Goblins have it. Jesus Christ. Yeah, no, to be fair, lizard folk don't have it.
Yeah.
To be fair, most races have it. I would say definitely Turtle do not have it. I would say the majority of races here probably do have it. Which is fine. I get the complaint. So I think maybe like, but I still feel like if you have at least one person in the party who does not have dark vision, I think that you can still utilize that as an environmental effect for that person. So like, you guys are like, oh, we're traveling and the human doesn't have dark vision, so we let the human carry a torch, and then but now we need to sneak up on this camp of drow underground, so we have to douse our torch, so the human's just completely blind going in, and we'll maybe have to use their action at the start of combat to strike a new torch and light it so they know what the hell is going on around them, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where you can give with stuff like that as well, it's opportunities to give like fun magic items that aren't necessarily like damaging. So you can give someone, in that case, like you can eventually maybe put a drift globe in as loot.
Mm-hmm.
And like
I gave you guys a torch of continual flame early in this campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. And stuff like that is just like, they're just cool and fun, and they don't really impact the game in any other way other than allowing the player to see, but it also has its own inherent negatives because then your stealth is going to suffer. And most of the time, if you're somewhere that's dark, you're probably going to need to stealth.
I had this idea for a magic item for that would be like commonplace, relatively commonplace in like desert environments in my world, where it's essentially like a glass cylinder with two metal caps on the end, and you sling it over your back. It's not quite as big, but it'd be similar to like Gara's urn thing he carries with him.
Oh, the urn. Yeah.
But it's a lot smaller. It's about the size of like, I don't know, a 2 liter bottle or something, you know. And the idea of it is that inside of it is a small portal to like the elemental plane of water, and water slowly trickles through into it, and it can provide one creature with enough water to sustain them in a hot environment for 1 day. So if you get this magic item, be like, cool, now I'm in a hot environment, I don't have to worry about getting water. I have enough that's gradually coming together in this backpack or this thing I'm carrying. Or I thought of another version of it where basically it's very slowly over the course of a day pulls water from the environment or any bits of moisture in the air. It's essentially a moisture evaporator from Star Wars. It just slowly pulls in all the water and condenses it, and it can create enough water in a single day that one creature can be sustained by it in a hot environment. That'd be kind of cool. That like, you know, desert dwelling cultures would carry these with them and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I like when you can like put in little things like that as like just it's like it's world building and problem solving at once. It's really like going back to the underwater thing, because so that underwater city, half of it is on land, so that it's called it's a minor and major. The minor part is on land, and that's where like there'd be like an embassy for other land-based cultures there where they can do business there.
And they can trade and stuff like that with land folk. Yeah.
Exactly, and then there's like a giant slipway down into the sea that you can just walk down, and eventually you'll just get overcovered, and you can go down into the sea. And like before you go in, you can get this like it's like a little rock thing about this big. It looks like just like a rock. You hold it to the hollow of your throat, and it's actually like a magical parasite, sort of like a face hugger. And what it does is it like limbs pop out of it here, and they attach to your throat, and it basically breeds for you as you go under.
By any chance, just I'm just curious, when it kind of latches on, when you're underwater, does it behave like a frog throat where it goes?
No.
That'd be really cool.
It's more. I narratively, I think it was more like it, like almost like it like attached on, and then it was able to like siphon oxygen through it into you, and gain some benefit for it. It was like it's like a friendly face hugger.
That's what's the word when two things don't go together? 2 words.
Horrifying.
Sorry.
Horrifying.
No. There's a word for it.
It's a tautology.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
When you say it like that's some hot ice, that makes no sense because the ice was hot to be water. Yeah. That's the same thing. There's no such thing as a friendly face hugger.
They're very friendly. You just might not want to be friends.
They have hug in the name.
Yeah. They also oh god. Yeah, but it was like I was just trying to think of a way, because like foreign dignitaries would still have to meet with the royalty, and to do that, particularly because it's a sea elf kingdom that's part of a larger elven kingdom, where each kind of elf has their own kingdom, and so like if dignitaries were coming from like the wood elf kingdom, they would have to have a way to meet with the king, and the king isn't going to give up his throne to go and meet with foreign dignitaries, so they have to have a way. I was like, okay, how can we do this? And face huggers inspired me.
Yeah. There's I think it's in, I want to say it's in maybe Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. There's some magic items somewhere in some of the books where they're parasitic magic items, and you like if you put them on, you can't take them off because they're living creatures, and they give you benefits, but you can't easily remove them because this living creature wants to stay attached to you in order to survive. You know,
similar to that,
which is very.
There's a symbiotic entity now, which is one of the dark gifts from Ravenloft, which is basically you have venom, like. Yeah,
I've seen it. Yeah, it's really, really cool.
Oof.
There's some other stuff that's kind of the typical magical environment stuff. You're talking about like heat, whether it be hot or cold. It's also altitude as well, which functions very much the same, but it's up in high peaks. And I think it's just Goliaths. Get a resistance to that, not to temperature or damage or anything, but they have the ability to sustain themselves in high altitude environments, which is really, really cool.
I'd imagine Air Ganassi would be pretty good at that too.
I don't think they have it by default, but they probably should, realistically. Although you could argue that because they don't have to breathe,
So I was thinking anything that doesn't have to breathe.
air wouldn't be thin for them. Yeah. But there's also like magical and less mundane environments like that, and that particularly that Tasha's Cauldron and everything introduced not too long ago.
Indeed.
Some of them are really, really cool. Some are a bit weird, but some of them I think are actually really cool. And of course, the art. If you don't have the book, definitely consider getting it. The art in the book is just utterly fantastic and really evocative.
The the art for the is it the psychic? Yeah, the psychic resonance place of like an awakened bear, like looking up at an eagle as it lands.
Hawk or whatever. Yeah. So and they have all these white markings on their fur, these patterns.
Yeah.
And there's another one there that's like it's like is it a primal tree in a desert? And it looks like a white petrified tree, and it's hundreds of feet tall, and it's just standing in a barren desert, with all these, what do they call? Are they called tressum? Those little eagle cat things they're like cats with wings. And they're just it's in the same book. It's a little further on from that one you were talking about there.
Mirror but there's pretty cool too.
Some great art, and like I said, super evocative. I think would inspire some amazing world building. There's a few things here that jump out at me. There's one part where it's called emotional echoes. Yes. So this is when the environment is like permeated with just raw the energy of any different kind of what you call it, emotion that you could feel.
Yeah.
So there might be like a rage section or something like that, or there might be like a love section or a sorrow or fear. And I think that's really, really cool because I mostly, like, we talked a little bit about like mechanical stuff about how some of these things can give you levels of exhaustion, or you might take damage over time maybe, or you won't be able to see what's happening, so your attacks are at disadvantage or whatever it is. These I feel like are less about hard mechanical things and more about really good roleplay stuff, which I think is, crunch doesn't always come with roleplay stuff, but like I just imagine an environment like we obviously talked about Van Richten's last week. You could have a section of Van Richten's or a section of any one of these dread domains that is permeated with fear, and the way it works is you basically make a saving throw against what is an environmental suggestion spell.
I love it.
And if you fail the saving throw, you are then just overcome with that emotion. So the one for fear says, appears in caves and ruins, overwhelming creatures with dread and urging them to give voice to their deepest fears. And I feel like that could be great if, like, maybe if you're someone who has it, you write your character as a flaw, is afraid of spiders or something like that.
Yeah.
It'd be great if this made you go like, oh man, this is so tired. I read into those spiders in here. I hate spiders so much. And then like everyone knows it's a character moment there. Everyone knows you hate spiders, and just stuff that can be so cool, you know.
First thing I thought of when I saw this, and it is probably because I'm still thinking a lot about Van Richten's. This is like the perfect thing for like a haunted house.
Oh yeah, even if you made a table out of it and had people roll.
Yeah, like you could give clues to the story of what happened by the different emotions you experience in the area, like in the air, like it's such a trope of like horror movies or like those ridiculous like ghost hunter shows, which are a personal guilty pleasure. I absolutely adore them for how bad they're. But like,
these the ones where people are sitting in a room and they're like, "Spirit, if you can hear us, give us a sign," and then the producer in the next room bangs on the wall.
Yeah, or like it's like, oh, I felt a scratch, and then you look and you're like, look, it scratched me right here, and there's like no mark or whatever. Or it's clearly someone's just gone like that on their but like
my favorite one of those was my sister was a particularly big fan of Girls Aloud when she was younger.
Okay.
And they did a ghost hunting thing on BBC. Oh, okay. And I swear to God, that the funniest part of it was like watching Nadine Coyle call out to the spirit, and then a bang came on the wall, and they all jumped.
My absolute favorite one. There was this because I used to watch Most Haunted when it was on, which is a great show. It's all ridiculous and fake, and nothing, and they've never ever found anything worthwhile. But there was a bit. They used to have this guy called Derek Acora, who was this older Liverpudlian psychic, and like he had that pure Scouse accent. And he would channel spirits and get overcome by these spirits. And at one point, They're like going through this one area, and I can't remember what was the story there. Yeah. But at one point he says he's been overcome by this spirit, and he just starts going, Tracy loves Dick, Tracy loves Dick, Tracy loves Dick, and, and it was like, he was like this spirit. He was like channeling the spirit of Tracy, and her husband's name was Dick. But like,
oh right, okay.
But like you can find it on YouTube if you look up most haunted Tracy loves Dick. But like, literally, it's just him there for about 10 seconds with his eyes closed and being like really dramatic about just going, Tracy loves Dick, Tracy loves Dick, Tracy loves Dick.
Oh.
But like, to get back to the point I was making, those hacks will often
That's one horny ghost.
Those hacks will often walk through the house and be like, I can feel a great sadness here, or like something feels wrong in this room, or there's anger here, you know.
I'm really glad you were able to bring that back around, because after Tracy loves Dick, I know where to go.
Yeah. I go off kilter, but I come back around. I autocorrect. Sometimes I autocorrect like a phone though, and it doesn't go the best.
You merge back into that lane hard though.
Yeah. But that's straight out. Not necessarily him, but like straight away what I thought about was like, you know, like the psychic medium going around. Like I feel, you know, there's. Or like in for probably a more appropriate example, in Poltergeist, when like that old woman walks in, she's like, there is darkness here, you know.
Yeah.
It's just you could do some really cool stuff with that, like, oh, like if you're, you know, if your quest for your party is like you're investigating a murder, and you go to like the house and like you could have like, if it's a particularly like fucked up or violent thing that happened, you could have them like, if they're in the area where the murder happened, like, you could have them like be overcome by like fear or overcome by like hatred would be a good one. Like they're picking up on like the emotional resonance of like the killer, and it starts making them act all weird and freaked out. Sorrow.
There's one that jumped out at me there. That's boldness.
Yeah, I love that.
I can't remember the name of it. What's the plane? Yeah, it's the plane where all the battles happen in D&D. Second, my Dungeon Master's Guide is just out of reach.
I think Lug got sent it in the campaign me and you played together in at one point, and I cannot remember it. It's like based off Valhalla, isn't it?
Sort of, or like Sovngarde in like Skyrim,
which is based
all the Nords want to go there, and which is basically Valhalla. Yeah, that's basically. But I'm trying to think of what it's called. But basically, there's one here that's boldness. That could be a cool one. That if you're in here for an extended period of time, you know, make a saving throw. Otherwise, if you're on Acheron, yes, that's it. Yes, and that's where like just endless battles take place between, you know, huge armies and stuff like that. But if you travel to that plane, it could be really cool to introduce this to the environment. Make the save. If you fail, then boldness, and boldness appears in battlefields and echoing canyons, encourages creatures to shout hidden truths or act out their greatest victories. And you can imagine like a situation whereby you put them up against a really big monster then, and this player is like so emboldened by what he's feeling and all these victories and all this death and war going on around him. He's like, come on guys, we can do this. And you're like, that's an ancient dragon, come back, we cannot run.
I wouldn't. I like that a lot actually. That's a good one. For that as well, I was thinking like something like you're in the Tomb of Kings, where like the defenders made their last stand, and like you find almost like a Mines of Moria thing, where like you find a tomb and you discover what happened, and when you do, you hear noises coming from the deep, and like the creatures arrive, but like your party is like rallied by the echoes of the defenders who fell here before.
I think that's a very cool one for like if you want to go for like a heroic moment, or give like, that'd be very cool actually for like an environmental thing. If like, I don't know, just for talk's sake, you're in Moria, you're in Erebor.
I was thinking Moria because it's that thing where like the cave troll is coming and all of the goblins are coming, and Gimli's like, as long as there's still a dwarf that draws breath in Moria, like.
And he stands up on top of the tomb, and he's raring to go.
That's like, he says, there's still one dwarf left that draws breath in Moria. That's it. I was just like, oh, that's such a good line.
I would do a thing where like, if I was trying to do something super heroic like that and make the environment play into the encounter and stuff, I would take something like this where if you have a dwarf in your party and you're exploring his ancestor's tomb or something like that, and the monster is coming, I'd say, right, make a dwarf make a charisma check or something like that, you know, and if he rolls high, I'd be like, okay, you have advantage on attack rolls versus enemies for the next minute, because you're in the tomb of your ancestors, and there's no way you're dying in the tomb of your ancestors. Your people built this place, and then just let them go ham on all the monsters that come in. You know?
Oh god, that'd be such a great moment for a character as well. I love giving moments like that to my players, and if the environment is something that can provide that, that's just the icing on the cake, really.
Mm-hmm. There's also some other ones here I was looking at as well. Though that's the emotional stuff, which I think again super good for role play stuff. It doesn't have to be mechanical. I just think you could be in an environment where let's take the sorrow one for example. It happens in ruins and swamps. You could and overwhelms creatures with sobbing and confessions of regret. That's the one for all those edgelord players who are like, I had to kill my parents when I was 10 years old. Like, they would confess to this stuff, and they would, whereas they're normally the character who sits in the corner and is quiet about everything. Maybe the environment forces them to bring all that to the surface, and they talk about their regrets. And now you're like, oh, we have actual character development for the character that normally doesn't speak because he's basically Sasuke.
Almost like being affected by Wonder Woman's lasso of truth.
I was thinking about that a minute ago when I was just Aquaman there turned into Wonder Woman going, and you, oh my God, you're beautiful.
Yeah. Oh God.
Terrible movie.
Yeah.
But you know what? Have you seen Snyder Cut?
Let's not get into it.
I'm not going to do a Snyder thing. I won't do a Snyder thing this week. I'm just curious if you've seen
No,
the
I haven't, because I don't want to give that man 4 hours of my time.
Okay, fair enough.
And also, I find the 4 to 3 thing really pantsy.
The which?
Do you know the words like, this film is presented in 4 to 3 aspect ratio to preserve the artistic vision of Zack Snyder.
Well, that's just that's a filmmaking nerd thing.
No, I just find it very pantsy, and I'm just like, no, go away, stop. You fundamentally don't understand the characters you're making movies about. Stop.
I mean, basically, like I've heard it's better. I've heard it's more enjoyable. But the thing is, I think I've heard that mostly from people who are already Zack Snyder fans. And I think he has a particular type of movie that people can get behind, and if you like it, great. It's just not for me, and it's definitely not for me when you're taking someone like Batman and making them scramble across the ground to grab their grappling hook. I'm doing it again. Sorry.
It's okay. Just breath in, breath out. It's all fine. But yeah, no, I've heard it's better as a film. You know,
that was a genuine accident.
Yeah,
I did not mean that. Sorry.
No, you're all good. I could see us turning a corner there, and I
was glazing over.
yeah, I could see us turning a corner. But yeah, no, from whatever, like, as a film, it works better as a film, but it is not a better like it's a better film than something that's split between two different people's vision. That's what
I think as well. Like, two things give the Snyder Cut an advantage, and again, I haven't seen it, but two things give it an advantage over the original movie that came out. One, it's 4 hours long. You can tell a lot more story in 4 hours than you can in 2 hours, you know? And two, Zach had the benefit of hindsight where he's already seen the failures that have happened. Am I echoing?
I don't think so.
I can hear an echo.
That's weird.
If you can't hear an echo, I guess... No, it stopped. No, it's still there. Doesn't matter. Point is,
you might
Zach
be
had the
hearing
benefit of...
my headphones into my mic, is what that might be.
Potentially.
But it never shows up on our video, so you should be fine.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think also hindsight is a thing, because Zach had the benefit of seeing the other movie come out, seeing what people didn't like, and then avoiding those mistakes as a result. That's all I'm going to say about it.
Magical environments, yeah?
Magical environment.
We're going to get like a reputation for just like, we're supposed to talk about D&D, all we do is rip on Zack Snyder.
I swear to God, the day Zack Snyder tweets me and goes, "Hey, cut it out! I'm gonna die with happiness. I will die with happiness." He actually seems like a super nice dude.
Apparently, he's an absolutely lovely human.
Yeah, he's meant to be really nice.
And I love 300. I just don't like how he handles Batman and Superman.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, moving on. So there's some other stuff here as well that are like environmental stuff. We mentioned at the start of the podcast, you've used some of these. These are magical phenomena.
Yeah.
They're kind of like almost like magical weather effects and stuff like that, and I really, really enjoy these. The one you used, you talked about, was Flay Wind, which is basically I
used two. I used the Flay Wind and the Flame Storm, because I'd been going through 3 different biomes. Actually 4 biomes. So the first one was earth influenced. The second one was fire influenced. The third one was an area of unraveling magic, and the fourth one was influenced by the Hells.
Yes.
And each of them had like different environmental challenges like related to the element. So like in the Earth influence place, that's where they got hit with the flay wind.
Well, and the flay wind's really, really cool. It's basically just like it's wind so strong and so filled with sand and grit and stuff that it's literally flaying your skin. It's slicing your skin as you're exposed to it. I think it's really, really cool. I not to be a hipster about it, but long before this book ever came out, I did put you guys up against a similar thing in campaign 1, where you guys had to travel. We mentioned it a while ago. You were traveling to the Blue Dragonborn area. That was a desert terrain. Hundreds of years ago, there was essentially what was a magical nuke detonated there that turned the entire desert to glass, just instantly vaporized and turned everything to glass. But as a result, over time, there's also been a magical storm that is there, and you guys eventually found out that storm was because of an ancient blue dragon that was dwelling there. But that storm being so perpetually present in the environment broke up the glass, and then instead of sandstorms, you had glass storms. And you guys had an Illithid scout ship you had been flying around to get to places. You decided you were going to fly into the storm and just take your chances. And at one point, you got caught by this literally like a razor updraft that just sliced the ship from the bottom. The ship went like trundling through the air, crashed into the ground. I believe I described it that the pilot seat that's in the front, a shard of glass came through and missed the pilot by like this much because it came through the front of the ship. And the ship got utterly destroyed. Not only that, then you had to try and navigate this perpetual storm while taking like a couple of D4s worth of piercing or slashing damage every single round. And then ultimately you fight an incredibly powerful elemental that was made of glass and stone and all of that kind of stuff. While trying to solve a puzzle that would open up the entrance so you can go in. And what I did was I'd also change the direction as well. So I had we had a mat and you guys had your minis down. And at the top of like at initiative count 20, so like layer action, I would roll a D, I believe a D8, and then I would decide that the wind is coming from like top, bottom, left, right, or like one of the angles based on what number I rolled. So then at the start of your turn, you might get exposed to it because the wind has now changed direction where you were previously in cover.
That was tense, and that's probably like one of the most memorable environments that I've encountered while I've been playing D&D. Like that one will always stick out because it's probably one of the only times where there's a big scary monster that I've got to fight, but we're trying to just keep that away from us right now because the environment around us itself is ruining our day. And we have a puzzle. It was just this whole thing of like, okay, we have to solve a puzzle, fight a monster, and not get killed by sand.
You also fought the ancient blue dragon in the same storm as well. Yes. You went to the surface to fight him, and you were still taking that D4 or 2D4 damage or whatever it was of slashing and piercing the start of every single turn you had as well.
I would count that as easily the most frustrating fight I've ever had in D&D.
And not because of the glass storm.
No,
it's because you had a cloak of flying, and you kept flying up to the dragon who was hanging out in the air because that's what dragons do, and you kept flying up to him, and every time you get in close, he would use like a layer action to do a wing attack, which knocks you prone, and then you'd fall like whatever it is, the 80 or 100 feet back to the ground, and then you'd have to get back to your feet and fly back up to him again next turn.
I can remember at least 4 turns where that happened. I was just being like, oh god. But yeah, that definitely, I think that's a really, really like a glass desert, like infested with this like magical lightning storm. That's like warped and like causing these like strange elementals to arise up. I think that was such a really cool idea that I really, really enjoyed, and even like just looking back at it now as a DM, because I don't think I was DMing at the time, like that's a really, really clever way to just be like, it's probably not going to kill someone, but if someone goes down, then that becomes a real problem.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I remember you guys, because your ship crashed and you had to make it from the ship. Like, I think you would locate object, and you were like, can I look for anything that's like resembles a dragonborn door? And I was like, okay. And you actually pinged one, I think in the range it's like 1,000 feet, and you pinged it like 800 feet this way or something like that. So you were like, right, we have to find a way to make it through 800 feet of glass storm. And like I was counting, I'm like, if you take an action, a dash, and then bonus action take another dash, you can move X amount of feet, so it'll take you this many turns. You will take this much damage by the time you reach it. And I had that happening. I remember you jumping into like little crevices and under rocks and stuff like that just to get any bit of cover you could to try and alleviate the storm. And like again, like you said, it wasn't the most threatening thing in the world.
Yeah.
But it was something to consider at the start of every single round. Where am I positioned? The wind might change in 2 turns' time, and then I could be exposed. But if I go into this nook, then I'm covered from like at least 3 sides or something like that, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to talk about the lava tunnel? I think that'd be a really good one to have a chat about, because that was one was definitely a big in terms of like environmental challenges. I think that's one of the biggest we've had so far in our current campaign.
Yeah, so I basically had you guys go. You were in the Underdark. There was a volcanic section of the Underdark you had to kind of pass through. The start of it was just the bottom of a huge crevasse, and it was just like it was a mixture of water that was pouring down, and then like volcanic flow and stuff like that, which had kind of culminated in a lot of steam. So it's difficult to see. First of all, like you couldn't see very far because it was all just this caustic sulfurous steam that was everywhere. Then there was the risk, which kind of falls more under environmental hazards, but the risk that you might accidentally step in something that isn't solid, because a lot of it looks solid, but it's only on the surface, or you might step somewhere and a crack might burst up with heat and steam and burn you and poison you and stuff like that. That was the first part. You made it through that and fought a couple of like lava elementals, and then proceeded to this lava tube, which is where all the runoff of the lava was going down. And there was like rocks you could jump on, but it was literally at like, I don't know, a 40-degree angle or something. It was pretty steep. And you started making your way down, hopping across some of the rocks. And after you made your way down a certain distance, I described that there was kind of a swell in the lava coming behind you, which was beginning to roll over some of the rocks you'd just been on a couple of minutes prior. And you realized, oh no, we're in not a lot of time. We're gonna have very few places to stand in here, and you had to kind of make some daring jumps, and you know, feet were dipped in lava, and fire damage was dealt.
Brown trousers moment for sure.
it got hairy a couple times. There was a couple times where like you guys would like slip and slide off of rocks, or I'd have you make an athletics check to make the jump, and you miss it by 1 or something. So I'm like, you make it onto the platform, but the edge crumbles and your foot dips into the lava just very briefly, so you do take some damage. And again, it's not like you didn't like only one of you had an ability to fly. So he was safe, and he was trying to I think he was using maybe Ray of Frost to try and freeze some of the lava, or like solidify it or slow its flow. But for the most part, it was a case of like, you just have to do well at your athletics or acrobatics checks to hop, skip, and jump across all these rocks, because the environment is trying to kill you, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that was very. I remember like, there's something about lava that just makes it like instantly incredibly tense, and I think it's just because the knowledge of how much damage lava does, and like, Jesus, that really, like, unlike the glass storm. Here, the environment is a very, 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 very big obstacle.
It was definitely, and it is, lava. If you're talking about environmental hazards, I'm pretty sure lava's up there with like some of the most damaging stuff. There's another one I have here. I just want to mention it because I think it's really cool. It's called Thrim's Howl.
Ooh.
And it's described as a bone-chilling blizzard and a wall of wind and snow like a living glacier. And I think just because Rime of the Frostmaiden, came out last year, not terribly long ago.
Yeah.
This would be a cool one to introduce if you're running Rime of the Frostmaiden.
I think
that these
Frostmaiden would have been like October 2020, I think.
I believe so. Yeah, it was like late 2020 is when it came out, so within the last year. But this would be a really cool one to combo with that. You take cold damage just from being outside. If you're resistant, I believe you take no damage. Outside, the creatures who are immune to cold are immune to the effects of the storm. But it's hard to see things and stuff. I think that could be really cool. Again, similar to how I ran the last storm, you could be like, we need to get to shelter fast.
Yeah.
And there could be a lot of perception checks. It could be a lot of survival checks. Or players might just be clever and have a spell or something they can use to shape stone or control water and make a trench they can hide in or something to get away from the bulk of the storm.
Yeah, and then as well, Thrym's Howl typically lasts 2d10 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So either find somewhere to hide out, or you're not going to be. Also, there's a thing where like if you a creature that dies from the storm freezes solid, which I think is really, really cool. That'd be a great way to know you're in a deadly environment. If you're walking through and you're like, oh, I think I see someone up ahead, and you get to them and you realize, oh, this is a person who is frozen like a block of ice.
I would love to use this in like a fiendish based campaign, because this gives me such strong vibes of like. So have you read Dante's Inferno?
No. So I'm vaguely familiar.
So in Dante's Inferno, the lowest layer of hell is the ninth circle, and in the ninth circle of hell, it's just completely, it's like just flat, barren, icy wasteland, and in the center of it all is the devil and Satan, and he's got 3 heads. Each of them is chewing on a sinner, and basically like these like ice cold, frigid winds just consistently and constantly flow across this area, freezing everything around him. And like sinners are buried up to their waists naked in ice, and in like just placed in the ice all around them. And like, oh, that Thrym's Howl, that just sounds exactly like that. And like that would be such a cool, like, oh, if you wanted to do like a Dante's Inferno based campaign would be really cool.
I'm actually just because I'm just what you're describing. I'm sure it's the inspiration for this thing in D&D. Is it
Carcerai or whatever?
I was gonna say Vestigia, but I could be wrong.
Oh, that's hilarious! I named I didn't realize that was a part of the Hells. I named a continent in my world Vestigia.
I could be wrong on that. 1 second now. I'm gonna bring it up. I believe it's in the Mordenkainen's, where it gives the additional types of tieflings you can be. Tiefling subraces. Here we go. Because one of them is because there's different devil lords that can give their heritage to tieflings. So you have like Asmodeus, Beelzebub, whatever, Dispater,
Blazibul, I think it is.
Belazbul, I think it is. Yeah, Belazbul, whatever.
It's like their off-brand Beelzebub.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Here it is. It's Levistus. So frozen Stygia is ruled by Levistus, an archdevil known for offering bargains to those who face an inescapable doom. And he's the one that if you pick that sub-race of tiefling, you get access to Ray of Frost, Armor of Agathis, Darkness. So I think if you wanted to do, like you said, a Dante's Inferno thing, you could totally do that within Forgotten Realms or whatever, or just within your own D&D world, where Levistus is the lord of this realm, and you're trying to make your way through a frozen hell. It's super cool.
Just above Thrym's Howl as well is a really cool one, the Necrotic Tempest. I just talked about it really quick, but it's basically a storm that's infused with the essence of death. And when it rolls in, it's like all dark clouds, and in the clouds are like skulls leering out at you and like white lightning, like bone white lightning. It's
great art for it here, actually.
Yeah, any creatures exposed to the storm that isn't construct or undead must succeed on a DC 13 con save at the end of each minute, or take 3d6 necrotic damage. And if a creature dies, they become a skeleton or a zombie, your choice, 1d10 minutes later, and it lasts for 1d4 hours. Oh, I didn't spot this because I didn't use this one. But like it lasts for 1d4 hours and leaves crops withered and wells undrinkable for 1d4 days after passing. That's nasty.
When it comes to environmental stuff, I actually think it's very, very important that you do track water and food, because depending on the environment you're in, like if you're in a desert, water is very difficult to come by. If you're in a toxic, like undead infested swamp, it may be very hard to find something edible, because a lot of the animals could be dead and rotting and stuff like that. I think tracking food goes hand in hand with good environmental challenges in D&D. There's a couple other ones I wanted to point out here. We're kind of just coming up, not too far off time, but a little bit. There's some of the what do you call them, environments that can be kind of like impacted or what's the word, manipulated by other realms. So some of the ones are like Blessed Radiance, Far Realm, Haunted. So Blessed Radiance being like celestial influence, the Far Realm being the Far Realm bleeding through into this reality. There's a brilliant one which is called Infestation, which the art for it is amazing. Yeah. It's just an entire town covered in webs, like giant spiders everywhere. I absolutely adore it. Some of the effects on these are really, really funny, and I pulled out a few that I really, really like. This one here is 76 to 80 on a D100 table for Infestation. silverfish destroy one. Basically, you get an infestation of silverfish in your belongings. You don't discover this until after your next long rest.
Oh.
What happens is they destroy one random paper product inside of your thing. If you're like a Pact of the Tome warlock or a wizard with a spell book, oh my god. That would be a nightmare, but it'd be an amazing moment.
I would
if
be
you roll
so
it.
salty. I would be so
I know.
unbelievably salty. Oof. There's some
There's
great.
a great one here for the Fire Realm as well. So that obviously with the Fire Realm, there's some stuff like things become fleshy or they summon gibbering mouthers or gibbering mouthers, or whatever you call them, or anything like that. See, it seems the confusion in D&D naming comes from how to pronounce a G.
That it's gibbering because you.
Is it gibbering?
Yeah, well, like it's gibbering is like talking, like don't like jibber jabber.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. That's probably the most like convoluted way I could actually fucking say explain that. Sorry.
This one, this is for the Fire Realm. This is 86 to 90 on the D100 table. Basically, all circular objects, which includes buttons, glass orbs, or the sun, or the moon even, are basically your enemy. And for the next, I forget how long it is. It's for like an hour or something. You will do everything in your power to try and destroy them. And I think that's hilarious.
How very old man yells at cloud.
Basically, yeah. But I think it's so funny because that's basically like let's say I'll bring it up here. Where is it? I think it's this one, 86 to 90. Yeah. In this region, circular things such as buttons, crystal balls, the sun, and so on seem appallingly wrong. One random creature that starts its turn in the region must succeed a DC intelligence saving throw or spend their turn loudly trying to destroy these objects. I think this is hilarious. Like the idea that you'd like tear all the buttons off your clothes and start stepping on them and just go, or like I don't know. I think it's really funny. I think that and I love it because a circle being like this perfectly symmetrical order, kind of this symbol of order, and then like in this realm of chaos that's so disgusting and wrong. I just think it's hilarious.
I actually used one of these in that same area. I used the unraveling magic area, where like it's an area where like the flow of magic has been like profoundly damaged by like some great cataclysm, and things don't work entirely the way they used to. They normally do. Some either like they won't work at all, or they'll have unintended consequences. And it generally happens. They give a list of different things, but they say basically if you cast a spell higher than first level, and on the activation of some magical items as well. It's kind of DM's discretion, but there are some really nasty ones in there, and there's some really funny ones as well. For a funny one, 11 to 15, one random creature in the region must succeed on a DC 15 dex save, or be enclosed in Otiluk's resilience sphere for 1 minute.
That's really funny.
So like imagine like you're in an area of unraveling magic, and like your wizard casts like shield as a reaction to like save itself from a damage, and then suddenly your barb just gets like put into the hamster ball and can't get out for the next minute.
I do love that idea of like of almost like ricocheting magic, like it what would we call it, like short circuits or something like that.
Yeah.
Another one for that one is just it's 6 to 10 is the region just becomes an anti-magic region, as in the entire region is anti-magic, which I think is just like, again, no magic items, no spells of any kind, no abilities that are too magical in nature. That's a challenge. That's a serious challenge.
And what I love is as well is that like particularly for the unraveling magic things, you don't know that some of these have happened. Like, you know, some like the one where it activates reverse gravity for a minute centered on the ground beneath one random creature. You'll notice that. But however, 91 to 95, during the next 24 hours, the first time a creature in the region targets another creature with a spell, the caster must make a DC 11 saving throw using its spellcasting ability. On a failed save, the spell targets the caster instead. On a successful save, the spell functions normally. This effect then ends. Like there's nothing in there that says you're aware of that's happened.
Yeah.
And then 96 to 100, one random creature in the region can cast a wish once within the next minute. Oh, like another one that I would say you would maybe not know that you have.
And then accidentally say the words, "Oh man, I wish I had more spell slots" or something, which could be beneficial. But then you could say something completely off the cuff, like, "I wish you'd shut up," and then you literally can't. That character can't speak for like an hour or something.
Or can you imagine just like someone's playing like a sulky, kind of moody, angsty character? They get hit. They roll 96 to 100, and then like you're like, Oh god, I
wish
wish
I
I
was
was dead.
dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love that. Like, oh, funny thing that you are currently priming a wish spell. You don't even realize.
I wouldn't even say that. I just like a bolt of lightning comes out from the sky, strikes you, and you fall dead.
Yeah.
And then I would be like, "Do you remember that 100 you rolled a minute ago?"
There's a couple other ones here. One is Enchanting Spring, which is kind of like I think very fey and very fairy-ish in nature. There's benefits and positives and negatives to some of these. So like the positive one I found here is if you drink the water from it, you gain the Bless spell, which I think is obviously we all like that. That's
Bless,
very cool.
super good.
Another one is just that if you bathe in the water, you grow a tail.
I like that. I kind of like that.
Also, it also states you're not in control of the tail. The tail reacts to emotions. So if you're sad, your tail will automatically droop. If you're happy, your tail will start to wag, and you will have no control over it.
Jesus, like being a teenager again.
There's one more I want to point out here is the magic mushrooms one, which I think would work super well with like Underdark environments with all those bioluminescent mushrooms and fungi and stuff like that. But it's one of them that if you eat one of the mushrooms, you are unable to speak, and instead you can only cluck like a chicken.
I like that. Well, man, I love the silly ones because like the unraveling magic one. There's some legitimately like this is bad. Like
that would disable like an entire party if they're all magic users or something like that. Like,
but the one that disables magic items everywhere in the region for 24 hours, like that's a big deal. But like these ones are just kind of funny, really. Like I like that. I like the balance of like you have these ones that you can throw in your really difficult places where like you want to emphasize like that this is an unwelcome, inhospitable, hostile environment to you and the party, and then there's ones like magic mushrooms where like they could be looking for a specific druid and they're going through a forest and they come across suddenly this one patch of forest that's like 60 feet wide, 60 feet circle patch of forest that's just like covered in all these crazy mushrooms and like there's all these weird animals because they've been like slightly altered by eating the magic mushrooms for so long.
There's one of the fun things about the talking like a chicken thing. It says you can cluck and croon like a chicken. The creature can also understand and speak to chickens, which is a really funny side effect. You would almost have to put a couple of like random chickens walking around just to be able to have basic conversations, and then I think that'd be so funny.
I can't imagine a chicken's int is particularly high.
No, probably not. This actually the magic mushrooms one reminds me of that episode in the desert in Last Airbender, where it's like cactus juice. It's the quenchiest. It'll quench you. And Sokka's. I can't believe they got away with that in Nickelodeon. Sokka just took like peyote.
Powerful hallucinogenics, yeah.
Yeah. Which I just thought was like one of the funniest. Still, to this day, I will still get like a glass of water or a glass of juice or something for my fiance. And I'll hand it to her, and I'll be like, "It'll quench you."
I used to have a boss that would literally just go, and remember, whatever you do, don't drink the cactus juice. Be like in a meeting and be like, "Okay, you need to do this, and this, and it'll be good." And remember, whatever you do,
don't drink the cactus juice.
Which was brilliant the first time they said it, because I went, but it's the quenchiest.
But it's the quenchiest. It'll quench you. It's quencherific.
Magic! Jesus, I just spotted the 10th one on the magic mushrooms one there. Magical mists pour over the creature's eyes and ears, acting as a fog cloud spell for an hour.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
And it's centered on you as well, so you can't run away from it. So you're basically blinded by a persistent fog that's surrounding you at all times.
You've become one with the vape cloud.
So one of these is really, really helpful. The creature regains 5d8 plus 20 hit points.
Jesus,
that's insane.
Is that like better
than a heal spell? No, heal spell's flat 70, isn't it?
No, I was gonna say that's like better than like 90% of potions.
Yep, I'm pretty sure.
Right, you can have a potion of superior healing. Or the mystery shroom.
Oh, the mystery shroom. Oh, that'd be hilarious. And then you'd be like, and you can just roll on the table.
Yeah. It's half the price. Very cool. It's half the price because you don't know whether or not it'll actually do the job.
Yeah. So there, like we said, I think there's some great stuff in this book, particularly Tasha's. But I mean, all round, if you're creative enough, you can make some utterly fantastic environments for your players to explore and to be challenged while they move through it. And I think that in and of itself is like maybe not the most obvious, but I think it is a cornerstone in trying to create good adventures. Is making sure that it's not just that your players are fighting some goblins in the forest. It's that your players are fighting some goblins and the forest is haunted and specters appear and stuff like that. There can be this whole other levels of the encounter that are,
or even just
really,
that
really
it's their forest. They have traps set up. They watch who comes in and out.
Yeah, absolutely. Or maybe like, yeah, absolutely. Like they could be doing that. They could be the ones that are making the environment that way. It doesn't have to be magical. It can be something mundane as well. That someone is doing. You guys were in a town called Caspier for a while, where all of the water was basically poisoned and toxic. But that's because there was some Sahuagin, and I'll say it that way until the day I die. Don't at me. There were some Sahuagin that were purposefully dragging like venom, like poisonous venom stuff they got from a venom troll, and leaving it in the harbor so that it tainted all the water and the fish were dying and stuff. So because they wanted to drive people out of the town and make it inhospitable. But again, that's like I know there's a troll involved, but it is still a mundane way of just bleeding the troll so that his poisonous blood is then seeping into the water and stuff like that. So yeah, but Martin.
Yes, Connor.
That's all the time we have today.
Ooh, it's been a good one. I love talking about stuff like that. I think, particularly with environments, it's so easy to just think of them as settings when realistically you should be looking at them as resources as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I think I think, yeah, like I think you hit the nail on the head there. There should be more than just a backdrop. An environment should be an active, almost like a player, almost like another side. If you have like the players playing the characters and the DM playing the monsters, the environment should be a third party that is informing more about it as well, because the environments can be hostile to like the baddies as well.
Oh, absolutely.
It could absolutely turn the entire encounter on its head if you're maybe in a bad situation with a dragon and suddenly because the entire cavern is collapsing around you with this environmental effect, the dragon gets a stone to the head and dies.
Yeah.
Very lucky.
Incredibly, that's some plot armor you have there.
Yes, exactly. If you have any questions you would like us to ask, stories you'd like us to cover, or topics you would like us to... Sorry, I said that wrong. If you have any questions you'd like to ask, stories you'd like us to share, or topics you would like us to cover, please tweet us at MicFlayerspod on Twitter. You can see that on the lower screen. You can also find, or you can find... I'm going to take also out of here. I say this every outro, and it's not accurate, because I say also like there's other places. You can find our podcast on YouTube and Spotify. There we go. We have new episodes out every week at 6 p.m. Irish time, every Friday at 6 p.m. Irish time on YouTube and Spotify. Martin, where can people find you on the internet?
Thankfully, mostly on the Micflayers podcast, where I'm always happy to be found. You can also find me on Twitter at So Sorry It's Over, which is boom right in the right hand corner there, and on the Micflayers podcast Twitter, which is, as Connor said, in the lower corner of our screen as well. I'm also on Twitch every so often now, on twitch.tv/Mert. But that's basically about it, really.
You guys can find me at 0.Connor, Z-E on Twitter, ZeroPointConor, 1N, very important. Were we synced? Yeah, nice one. And that's about it. Otherwise, you can find me here every Friday, 6 p.m. Irish time, YouTube and Spotify, on the Micflayers podcast. So, guys, it's a goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from me.
Thank you very much for watching, guys. We'll see you all next time.
Bye-bye.